Hello, and welcome everyone. The Victoria, the Spanish Tier 9 premium battleship, is finally out of NDA and about to enter the game. Victoria is based around a swift battleship idea that shared the layout and features of the Italian Vittorio Veneto-class of battleships and was considered for construction in early 1940. Victoria differs considerably from the Vittorio Veneto-class, however, in terms of her burst fire mode and access to the main battery reload booster, and it's this combination which can lead to considerable damage output in the right circumstances. So let's take an in-depth look at the Victoria, starting with the armor layout, as you can see here on screen. Using a simple port screenshot, the fore-end, upper and lower and aft end is all 32mm. You do get a very nice fore-end armor belt protecting the front turret of 130mm. The main deck armor is 45mm and the upper casemate is a very solid 70mm. The main belt armor is 375mm and runs from just under the front turret to just under the rear turret. The superstructure is 19mm and these 381mm gun turrets get a frontal plate of 380mm, side plating of 200 and 130mm. The upper top plate is 200mm at the front and 150 at the rear, while the rear plating on these turrets is 350mm. So pretty decently protected, these gun turrets.
Alarma de incendio!
Now if we look at the ship's citadel, we can see it is predominantly underwater. There is a tiny section that is raised ever so slightly above the waterline, so not too bad. Now this does tie in to the hit points, 64,000 hit points, which is augmented by having access to 5 repair parties that can repair 388 hit points per second for just over 30 seconds. I did get citadeled by Wisconsin there. The constant plane spotting from this carrier has been making my life a nightmare so far. We've started poorly, but we are about to make a strong comeback. So back to the numbers. Victoria gets a torpedo protection damage reduction of 38%. Let's dive into the main battery. Victoria gets 9 of these 381mm guns. They are housed in 3 turrets, 2 fore and 1 aft. The turrets at the front are super firing. They have a reload time with this build of 26.4 seconds. They can rotate 180 degrees in 34.5 seconds with a max dispersion of 278 meters with a max firing range of 23.9 kilometers, and they have a gun sigma rating of 2.0. Now Victoria can fire both high explosive and armor piercing, although I have been using predominantly the armor piercing. The high explosive gets a max damage of 5100, 24% fire chance. These high explosive shells can pen 64mm of armor and have a shell speed of 880 meters per second. Now the armor piercing shells have a max damage of 12,000 with a slightly slower shell speed of 850 meters per second. Now Victoria does get access to a alternate fire mode known as burst fire and modified shells. Now what this essentially means is when you activate this alternate fire mode, you can fire 2 salvos within a very rapid period. There's a 1.76 second interval between both salvos. Now what this actually does, it does reduce the damage of your shells by 25%. So in the case of armor piercing, for example, the 12,000 damage on citadeling an enemy ship will be reduced to 9,000, and it adds 13 seconds to the reload time. So for situational use only, ship turns a broadside in front of you, for example, you do have this weapon at your disposal to fire off 2 very, very quick salvos at the cost of reduced damage and extended reload. Now Victoria also gets access to 2 charges of the main battery reload booster. Now this will reduce your main battery reload time by 33%. It's the combination of these two, the burst fire mode and the ship consumable, the reload booster ship consumable. Now I can imagine some very tasty clips being created in the future when the stars align and players are able to combine this burst fire mode and reload booster under the right circumstances. Victoria also gets a secondary battery, 12 single mounted 90mm and 4 triple mounted 152s. The 90mm secondary battery have a reload time of 3.8 seconds, with this build a range of 7.7 kilometers, firing high explosive shells with a max damage of 1300. They can pen 15mm of armor, they have 5% fire chance and a shell speed of 860 meters per second. The larger caliber, these 152s, have a slower reload of 11.4 seconds, also firing high explosive with a fire chance of 7%. Now these can pen 25mm of armor and have a very nice fast shell speed of 950 meters per second. So that rounds up the main battery guns and secondaries. Decent reload, decent range. I must point out Victoria does have the option to mount a spotter aircraft or a fighter should you choose the spotting aircraft. This gives you an additional extra 20% in fire range. Victoria also gets access to the depth charge airstrike to combat submarines. You get 2 available flights with a operational range of 10 kilometers. Each flight has 1 aircraft dropping 2 bombs with a max bomb damage of 4,200. In terms of EA defense, Victoria gets a rating of 76, 6 twin-mounted 20mm, 14 quad-mounted 20mm, 2 single-mounted 37mm, 4 single-mounted 55mm, 2 twin-mounted 55s, and the secondary battery of 90mm and 152s. They are all dual purpose, so all combined they pump out a continuous average damage of 389, which is equally divided between short, medium and long range. Victoria can fire 8 shell explosions per flak salvo with a max damage of 1470, priority sector reinforcement of 35%, the action and prep time is 15 seconds for both, and the max firing range on the Victoria's AA is 4.6 kilometers, so kind of limited in terms of max firing range. Although anything that comes within the firing range of 4.6, there is a lot of flak. The damage is equally spread over short, medium and long, so it's not terrible. In terms of maneuverability, Victoria gets a base speed of 30 knots that can be improved to 31.5 when mounting the Sierra Mike signal flag. I am running brisk with this build for an additional 10% in speed while undetected, although it was quite difficult earlier in this game with the large number of aircraft camped on my position, but now we can take the advantage of brisk. The turning circle radius is 810 meters and the rudder shift time is 15.5 seconds. Now I must add, I am using the propulsion mod. I posted the complete build earlier in the video near the start. So finally, stats wise, Victoria gets a concealment rating of 56. Now for a battleship, this is quite decent. 11.7 is the magic number here. You will be detected by enemy surface ships at 11.7 kilometers. You will be surface detected by enemy submarines and aircraft at 8.7 kilometers. So this is the Victoria, Tier 9 Spanish battleship. Now Tier 9 is one of those tiers at the moment that really does feel quite hostile. You will be forced to fight Tier 10s and super ships predominantly, so it can feel like a very hostile environment. But the thing is, Victoria, with this combination of burst fire mode and reload booster, it seems to be in a position that it can hold its own. Decent armor, you're going to need it. You're going to be fighting predominantly higher tier ships, but the armor does stand up for the most part. And this combination of burst fire mode and reload booster, it can be quite spicy in the right moments. So you have the weapons to potentially hold your own against what you're normally going to be fighting is better ships. But she does perform quite well. I can see this ship being a little bit of a meme generator, because I think we're going to see some very, very nice clips and combos of this reload booster and burst fire mode in working in tandem. It is quite interesting. I know a lot of people will say, oh my god, what another gimmick is this? But this is the world we live in at the moment. World of gimmicks. So I hope you enjoyed this review guide of the Victoria. This will be entering the game very, very soon. It will be available as part of a mystery banner drop. One of 3 drops. The Victoria, the Karl Johan and Anhalt can also drop in these containers. They have a 1.2% chance of dropping, I believe. But don't despair, the ship will also be available in the armory and the premium shop for both Admiral packs and naked prices. So basically you can purchase the ship on its own. So I hope you enjoyed this quick little preview guide of the Victoria. If you'd like to see some live gameplay, feel free to come over and visit me on Twitch. If you'd like to support the channel, you can see here there is a special offer. You can earn yourself an additional super container per month. The details are in the pinned comment below the video. Here you can see the link to Twitch on screen. I look forward to seeing you all.
Nuestra victoria está cerca.